Welcome back to the Evil Bad Book Club. I'm Everyday BS. We'll be breaking down the fourth chapter of this book. Um, so, in the fourth chapter, we find out, their communications setup that the organization has and how they use it. They go over some of the particulars of it. And it sounds like from the era that it's almost set up like a pager. So I don't. Most of the viewers that are my age or older are going to remember pagers. They were about the size of, I don't know, a box of cigarettes or smaller actually. And you would just get a number on them. You'd either get a telephone number or somebody would send you, you know, 4377, which was help or hell or whatever. You always got different codes on it from people. We worked out numerical codes that meant different things, so you didn't have to necessarily call people. You just knew what was up because it'd tell you what the number was called and that. So it'd just basically have a phone number that would show up on your pager. You would call them and you could call them back or whatever. But it sounds like this is like a pager, but you can't. Well, you could page back, but everybody in the unit or the organization rather gets the same code. So you can look at the code, know what unit they were talking to by one of the digits in the code, and then based on 800 different predetermined messages, you know you could figure out, yeah, that unit is doing this or that unit gets it, and they're like, hey, they're talking to us. We got to go rendezvous at whatever position. So that was pretty interesting. That's a cool way to keep communications down to a really minor level. He, in the book they're talking about it's less than a second to transmit, so it would make the government have a hard time trying to triangulate their location based on transmitting, which is pretty smart, I would think. And then any other communications they did had to be face to face to keep everybody on par and on keep communications secure. So that was pretty interesting. And so Turner had to go help another unit out and get their transmitter working. Apparently, they were pretty inept, so he had to go set that up for him. And then, love interest between him and Catherine sparks towards the end of the chapter, and we find out that George is actually the unit leader for Turner's unit, and they're set to have a new mission. So they find out what their mission is. Apparently, they're targeting the FBI building, which ties this into Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombings. If you want to check that out, that's how this book became pretty famous, or how I heard of the book. I heard about this book in the '90s when McVeigh had supposedly blew up the Oklahoma City FBI headquarters. So the FBI at that time in real life had considered that McVeigh got his ideas from this book. And that's one of the reasons that it became on the radar or something, I guess, because supposedly McVeigh had the book with him or pages of the book or something. I don't know. It all seemed kind of fishy then. It still seems kind of fishy. McVeigh's dead now because they executed him, so you'll never know the truth. Um, so anyway, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Another thing of note is the way that they had the transmitters set up, or their communications, their radio communications. They made sure that it was all able to be done with a self-powered source, like a car battery, so that they weren't dependent on the normal power grid. because during this time in the book, there's problems with, power going out, brownouts, all that kind of stuff. So, rather than having to deal with, oh, power's out, we can't transmit, they had their own battery bank so they could hook up to a battery, transmit if they needed to. And of course, their receivers were battery operated as well. So they weren't dependent on outside electricity, which is smart. So their transmitter was dependent on a 12-volt battery. But one of the things that they discovered, this unit that Turner went to help, did not have a battery charger and had no idea how to charge the battery without a battery charger. So he had to explain that they could hook it up to a car, let the motor run to charge the battery and things like that. And then he went out and got them a battery charger. So that kind of reinforces, you need to, have your primary, emergency, contingency, etc. Alternate, your primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency sources of power. So, they had a battery. They should have had a battery charger. To charge the battery. They could use a car to charge the battery that they did have if the battery charger didn't work. And then if they really needed to, they could have put the transmitter outside and hooked it up to the car battery that was in the vehicle, or pulled the vehicle battery out. So those were different things that, you take from it. And those are things you need to think about, in your preparations for anything. If you have a communication system, you need to have a backup communication system, and then a backup for your backup, and etc. So those are all kind of covered in this unit. I don't know if William Pierce did that on purpose or not. Another thing to consider in this book is, how political ideologies, caused relationships to crumble. Like the character George, his wife had left him, after everything had happened because of his political ideology. And that you see that happening now. You see families splitting, based on, the special sauce, whether you have it or not. And, with the last year or two, you've also seen it on other political levels where families have split up. Whether you liked 45 or 46, I've seen it in my wife's family. Her parents, are more liberal minded and supported 46, where, we're more conservative minded, and we're like, well, 45 is not perfect, but he's definitely better than 46. So, you have that in this book as well, how politically families can get divided, and it can change everything. I had one of the subscribers corrected me. I had called this a racist book, and it's not really a racist book, but all the characters are racist in the book. So, I mean, that's a pretty important thing to note, that you're reading a novel. Everyone in the novel is racist, whether they're white, black, Jewish, Hispanic, whatever. The races are divided, and they really don't trust each other at all. And so, the way that you can look at that now is how, our government, or our media, maybe more than the government, has tried to divide us on the same lines of race and politics. And they've been pretty successful, partially. It comes in waves. Like, they're really successful, and then like everybody loses their mind, or a small group loses their mind, destroys an area, and then all of a sudden everybody gets their senses back, and they pull back, and you see it come in waves. You see all this trouble happening. The media stirs shit up. There's a big explosion of stuff, and then everybody pulls back, and then the media stirs it up again, and they just keep moving things forward and forward, and probably more closer to whatever the end goal is. Um, some people think that the media is just trying to get views and ratings. I think it's more thought out than that. Um, you know, I wish it was only that. If it was only that, I think things would get better, quicker, easier. I think there's something deeper going on. I don't know what it is, but it's screwed up. Um, anyway, it'll be interesting to see what's going on right now. As I'm reading this, you got the Kyle Rittenhouse case going on, and it'll be interesting to see how the jury um, uh, decides to whether convict or acquit or whatever, or whether the case gets thrown out. But we're waiting to see, at least while I'm recording this. You know, so we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how the public reacts. Could be pretty interesting. Anyway, stay tuned. Tomorrow will be chapter 5. That'll be it for this week until Monday. Maybe I'll do something Sunday or Saturday night. I don't know. Stay tuned. Hit that bell down at the bottom over there, wherever that is, so you can be notified when these videos come up. If you have any other ideas for books or on what we've read, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what kind of ideas or what you're gleaning from this, and I'll check you YouTubers out later.